Okay, I have to cut some really wicked small mitas, wicked small. And so I'm going to put an 80 tooth blade in. I used a 40 tooth 7¼ inch to cut some other pieces. And the problem is with a small blade like that is I can't get my cube to stick to it because there's not enough blade. So I am going to switch back to a 10-inch blade on this saw, which is not by a lot of measurements a particularly good saw. The fence works. It's not the absolute worst I've ever used, but we're going to check and see if it's accurate as part of this exercise. So I'm waiting for this to click in. There's a spot in the arbor. It's the nut here, this thing that holds the blade on there. And I'm pushing on this little thing here I'm pushing into. And I'm trying to rotate the arbor to where it clicks in and actually stops the blade. It shouldn't be this hard. There we go. Okay, that I had some dead air there. I couldn't quite get this. There's a pin and there's a spring-loaded thing you push. I'm not sure if you can see that in the camera, but I needed to lock it in to keep the this part from twisting. And then what I like to do is actually tighten it. The force of the blade cutting pushes, and the nut is reverse threaded, I believe. So it's righty tighty, lefty. Maybe it's fine. But anyways, when the blade hits something, it's going to push back, and what that does is it actually tightens up the nut. Make sure you release that if you have your saw has that. But it tightens up the nut, because if it loosened it every time it ran into something, you'd end up with a blade spinning off your table saw. So next thing is I am going to level this thing off. Okay, so on this guy, I push the crank in for raising and lowering the blade. Oh, oops, I'm going the wrong way. Wait, am I? Oh yeah, I need to straighten stuff out before I cut 45s. So what I want to do is set the blade to 0 and lock it in. And then when I do a 45, I want to swing it. And then with miters, what you want to do is set it up so it's 45 and a hair extra. So that's 46. So yeah, that would probably be good right there for 45s. Because what's going to happen is, in theory, what you're doing, if you make a mistake, if you make a cut, it's not exactly 45. It's better that this edge meets by overcutting the 45. What's going to happen is you overcut it, and you're going to end up with more slope. And so this edge will contact before this edge contacts. And if this inside edge contacts the next piece, it's going to open up your seam out here, and that's what's going to show. So anyways, if you, like I said, if you overcut, thank you 4 Eyes Furniture for your tip, but if you overcut a little bit on that 45, then it'll meet cleanly along this edge, and you can squish it together and you'll get a nice clean seam instead of a hairline gap along there. It's a beautiful sound. Okay, so a lot of inexpensive saws come with this. It's an indicator, so you can adjust this so that when your fence moves, you can refer to the tape here on your saw that runs along the fence in inches. So how do you know? How do you know when it's accurate. You can measure, but if you're just using a rule and you're kind of measuring here and eyeballing it, you don't know if you're exactly on a certain number. As you can tell, it's a little crooked right now. But with some 1, 2, 3 blocks, you can set them here, square against your blade, and you're accurate to a 10,000th of an inch. Checking to see if there's any wiggle. These are the cheap Chinese ones from Amazon, so you can see there's a bit of a cut, like an angle to the cut where they're milled, but I'm going to say they're probably flat. So that's exactly 2 inches. And so now I can set this, if I had a screwdriver, I can set that up to 2, and I can calibrate using these. I can calibrate my gauge and my fence. So there's a little bit of a wiggle side to side, as well as a twist, I think. So I'm going to butt these up against the blade on the fence. I'm going to set that. And so that's pretty much 2 right there. All right. Shift over. So that's what you're looking at. Okay, here's another one. How if you know if your work is square? Let's see, there's kind of a gap in there. Let's see. Well, that's 90. That's not 90. Because if I try and push it into the corner, I got a wiggle. And that's if I just set them down. They're very heavy. These are the solid ones. And so that's off a hair, just a bit. Let's see this side. See, that side's terrible. And then you can lock these in too. So let's say you want to do some quick tests on squareness of something. And you've got the solid ones. You can get the ones that have holes in them, and you can... Oh, see, well, there's a problem. All right, let's prop up my clamp. Okay, so with the right clamp, that's square now. And the advantage is that I have a nice tall... Oops, let me back this out. All right, so I have a nice tall fence here to look and see if something's square. If I have to check a bunch of them, I just want to throw them into that pocket and see. So all the edges are kind of terrible. Here's the thing. If I need to check square, I have to sit there and line this up. It's not the end of the world, but it feels a little goofy to have to do that every time. Kind of eyeball it. But here, I know exactly, and it's not moving compared to something like this, where I have a thin blade. Here I have a corral. I have a big tall fence area. I can throw it in there, and I can check to see if any of these edges are square, and they're none of them are. So anyways, that's another good use for these blocks. So I'm happy to have. Here's another one. Can you trust your miter gauge to cut a perfect 90? So let's find out. Just going to take a block, drop it in there, and then check to see if it's rocking around and if it's got any rock going that way. So it looks to be pretty square. Just want to make sure that that's tight, because this loosens up so it'll pivot and give you angled cuts, and you don't want that right now. You just want, at least I want, to true up these pieces and get a nice square piece going for the next step. Okay, I'm not in love with this idea because the pieces are so small. I'd rather have a whatchamacallit, a crosscut sled, and I had a match fit sled that worked great for this, but I'm not sure where it is, and I don't know. I got stuff to do, so I'm just going to go for it. Actually, these I think I can cut with the fence. Let's see. Cut it there. Yeah, that's the problem. They're not square. So look for a square edge and just shave it. So let's see if we fix it. Let's see if it's trued up. So, it's kind of close. Still a little bit of wiggle. Unless the unless the blocks are just that crooked. So, anyways, it's pretty close. It's better than it was. All right, time to get to work.